Us today for our branding with purpose from identity to impact. My name's Autumn. I'm a community engagement specialist for the Small Business Development Center and the Veterans Business Outreach Center. And we're super excited to have Elizabeth Fager present our branding with purpose from identity to impact training that we have. She put it all together for us, so we're super excited. She is the expert in all things marketing here. So we have the chat feature up and running, so we can monitor that. We also have the Q&A feature, so you're welcome to throw your questions into the Q&A, and Elizabeth will answer as we go. And I'm gonna throw it over to Elizabeth here, because I'm also gonna shut the door. So
awesome. Thank you so much, Autumn. And hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. If someone could just give me a heads up in the chat, if you can hear us, if the audio is okay. Give me a thumbs up, a reaction, a chat. That'd be awesome. Your chats are private, by the way. No one in the audience can see your chats. Awesome. I'm seeing some thumbs up come through. Thank you so much. That's fantastic. Appreciate the reaction. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for joining us today for this presentation. I'm excited today to chat with you a little bit about branding and marketing strategy. I know that this is a pain point for a lot of business owners. So I'm excited to hopefully give you some takeaways so that when you leave here today, you can leave and actually implement some of these things. So if I could kind of just get a pulse check from those of you who are in the room today, if you feel like you right now are operating a business and you have a strong business brand, and when I say a brand, you have an identity as a business, like you know who you are, you have a mission, you have a vision, you have a purpose as a business. Do me a favor, and in the chat, if you could say, yes, I feel like my brand, my business brand is identified. Send me a yes in the chat. And I just mean like your identity right now as a brand. Okay, awesome. Thank you. Thank you. Oh my goodness, lots of yeses. This is great. No shame if you don't. That's why you're here today. All yeses. Do a little count again. Okay, I'm seeing about a third of people. That's awesome. Now let's jump to a second question. If you feel like you have a strong brand identity, and we're going to talk about these terms in just a few minutes here, I promise I'll clarify what the difference between those things, but a brand identity is a visual brand. So you have a logo and you have a color scheme. If you at least have a logo and a color scheme, do me a favor and in the chat, tell me, yes, I have a logo and a color scheme. Ooh, fonts, imagery, and brand guidelines. That's amazing. We're going to talk briefly about brand guidelines today. I got one, I do, but it doesn't feel like me. Awesome. We're going to talk about that today. Logo and color. Yes, logo, color scheme, no. Cool. We're going to talk about how to pick color scheme today. Fantastic. Any other input that you want me to have before I start talking today? This is going to help me kind of frame how much I should talk about these things. Any other input you want me to have before I start chatting? Logo suite. Got a logo suite question mark. We'll chat a little bit today about like what are the different logos you should have. We'll touch on that. Yes. Any other last input before I move on from branding? Okay, so that's going to be half of the house today, branding. The second half of today's presentation is really going to be talking about marketing strategy. Marketing strategy is really about your approach and your holistic view of how are you going to communicate about your product. Sales and marketing are slightly different, right? The goal of marketing is to communicate about your product with the end goal generally of selling. Okay, so how many of you feel like right now you have a really intentional strategic approach to marketing? So give me in the chat a yes to I feel good about my strategic approach to marketing. You can also say no if you'd like, or you can just not say anything. A little, some nopes, some emojis. Thank you for the emoji, spicing it up. Love it. Some acknowledgement of right now, my approach is not especially strategic, but you know, you need one. That's why you're here. Thank you for joining us. Can't wait to help. Any other context for me today about your current strategy, or maybe just anything that you know you need help with when it comes to strategy today? Start with that. Anything you want me to know about why you're here today? Some knowledge of digital marketing, but don't feel great about the actual strategy portion. Thank you. That's helpful. Great. Awesome. General looking to learn more. Oh, this is a great question, talking about wanting to separate an individual identity, a personal identity from a brand identity without kind of losing either. That's definitely a tricky one. A lot of individuals and entrepreneurs need to sort of find that balance. We can touch on that today. Rebranding and want to make the right decisions on the new name and logo for longevity. Awesome. This is a really pivotal point in your business. Thank you for joining us at this key point in your business. And please know that throughout today's session, I am very open to questions. You are not going to bother me if you drop a question in the chat. You're not going to interrupt me. I love questions. I love interactivity. So I may not answer them right in that particular moment, but I promise that I will come back to them. So when a question comes to your brain, it's not going to bother me if you drop it into the chat or the Q&A. The Q&A is great because the Q&A will allow other people to see your question when I answer it. So if you want other people, if you're like, this is a question that I bet other people have, and you want other people to see your question, that's a great reason to use the Q&A feature of the webinar, because when I answer it, I can mark your question as answered and they'll be able to see your question. And we can even type an answer. Maybe that's something, Autumn, you can help me with today, kind of just type a summary of my my verbal answer. And then the audience will be able to see it, because right now you can't see each other's chats. So those are private. So if you have a private comment that you want to give to me today, go ahead and use that chat function. But if you have a public comment that you want to make, go ahead and dump that into the Q&A, and I'll make sure that all of those are getting answered today. Someone talked about increasing business exposure digitally without being codependent on social media marketing. I love that you said that. So many people think, a lot of business owners think that like marketing, digital marketing means social media marketing. Social media marketing is like one very small component of digital marketing. And you definitely should not rely on social media marketing as your only digital marketing strategy. So we're certainly going to talk about digital marketing mix today and how you can sort of choose the right channels and what that mix should be. So thank you for bringing that topic to light. And looking to see what information I can learn to expand my branding knowledge. Awesome. Thank you so much for taking a little bit of time to just kind of give me a pulse check this morning, so I can make sure that as I talk about things today, I'm not spending too much time on things you already are familiar with, while also making sure that I highlight things that you do want to learn. So a little bit about kind of like where my head was at when I was framing this, but as I said, I'll customize this a little bit today based on some of the things that you told me. By the end of today's session, I would like for you to be able to identify the key components and characteristics of a brand and apply that knowledge to be able to creating your own brand identity, or tweaking your own brand identity if you already have one, to reflect your business's unique voice, ultimately in a way that resonates with your target audience. Because you can have the coolest, prettiest brand in the whole entire world that you love, but if it's not ultimately helping you connect with your target audience, which is what you need to do to create sales, that brand identity is not really doing you any good. So my goal today is to really help you reflect on, is my brand fulfilling? Is it authentic to me and my brand? But is it ultimately fulfilling its purpose and helping me be successful in business? Next, I want you to, that's kind of the branding side of the presentation. We'll take a break about halfway through, because I know that we're here for about 90 minutes today, so I don't want to talk at you too much. I'll give you a break, answer some questions during that break so that I'm maximizing all of your time. Then we'll come back, and on the second half, I want you to understand the importance of having a marketing strategy and how it will contribute to your success as a business owner and accomplishing business goals. We'll talk about conducting a SWOT analysis of your business to evaluate your business, your audience, and the competitive landscape, and how all of that will then inform your marketing strategy. I want you to define marketing objectives that align with your audience and goals, identify marketing tactics that help you accomplish those objectives, set KPIs, which are key performance indicators, and then implement measurable techniques to gather analytics, data insights is what I mean by that. Interpret that data, assess outcomes, and ultimately make data-driven decisions so that you're making thoughtful and intentional decisions, not just throwing stuff against the wall to kind of see what sticks and, you know, turning your wheels and spinning out and spending useless time, which you don't have as a business owner. And appropriately allocate resources to maximize your return on investment and optimize your marketing spend. And if you're like, lady, you are throwing a whole bunch of terms at me that I do not understand what they mean, I promise you that at every point along the way today, I'm going to identify these key terms. And at the end of today's session, you are going to get a copy of my digital marketing workbooks. The workbooks that you're going to get are actually a part of a 10-part digital marketing series that I offer at the SBDC. It's called the Digital Marketing Blueprint. It's 10-part. It starts with branding, through strategy, through social media strategy. I talk about Canva, I talk about blogging, I talk about website content, and we'll be able to share the links to those with you at the end of today's session if you'd like to continue learning your knowledge about digital marketing. But all of my packets are really hard copy workbooks to help you work through these concepts in your own business. So you'll get copies of those at the end of today's session as well. So here's our agenda. Again, we're going to talk about branding first, talk about definitions, elements of a brand. How do you actually, what's the process for building your brand? And then we'll go over brand kits and look at some great examples of business brands so that you can see what this actually looks like in implementation. And we'll switch gears and talk about marketing strategy. Again, we'll go over key terms, the purpose of a marketing strategy, the elements of a strategy, talk about developing a strategy and what does the actual process look like. And again, we'll end by looking at some examples because I think it's always really helpful to see what it looks like in application. So that's an overview of what to expect today. That said, we're going to jump right in. I am a fast talker. I was a high school teacher for almost 10 years, which means I'm used to having a captive audience, which means I talk really quickly. So if at any point you need me to repeat something that I just said, please just drop me a chat and I won't rehash what I just said. Happy to do so. Again, you're not going to interrupt. So part one, let's talk about branding and what that even means. First off, what is a brand when I talk about a business brand? I love this definition of a brand. A brand is the set of expectations, memories, stories, and relationships that taken together account for a consumer's decision to choose one product or service over another. So your brand at its very core is why a customer would choose to buy from you. People don't buy products. They buy the experience that they have from using the product. So it's important that when you're establishing who you are as a business, that you're figuring out what is the experience a person has when they are buying my product. And how do I communicate that to them throughout every single touch point they have with my business, from when they first learn about my business to when they're considering buying my product to the actual experience they have when buying the product, be it when they're buying it online versus coming in a store, to when they're using my product, to when they're telling their friends about my product, to when they're physically interacting with my product. If it's a product or if it's a service, what does that actual service look like? And your brand is the story that you're telling about your product and the experience that they have. So your brand is really important because it is that expectation. It is the memory that they have. It is the relationship that they have with your product so that it is unique, it is memorable, and it is the reason why they keep coming back for more for your product or your service. Another great definition of a brand, this is a famous quote. Oh gosh, Jeff Bezos said this. He said, your brand is what other people say about you when you're not in the room. You could also think of it as your reputation. So I like this one because I think it encapsulates what we're going to talk about today. It's the whole picture of your brand and your business, expectations, memories, stories, and relationships. But to simplify it even further, your brand is your reputation, and that's what we really want to outline. How do we frame your reputation when it comes to your business? So let's think about a couple of different terms that use the phrase brand, and let's separate them out. The brand in general, what I just gave you a quote about, all the elements of your company. It's who you are. I'm not going to use your identity because your brand identity is slightly different. We're going to talk about it in a second. But your business brand is who you are as a company. That includes your product. Obviously, that's a big part of who you are as a product, be that a product or a service, but it's the thing you sell. It's your values. It's your mission. It's your vision, okay? The impact you want to make on the world. It's your purpose, why you exist, the problem or solution that you're trying to solve for your customer. It's your story, how you came to be. It's your personality, okay? If someone were to describe your brand like it were a person, how would they describe that brand's personality? I'll give you an example today of a business with a strong personal brand. And it's partly captures your visual identity. Okay, that is a part of your brand. So I love this, this visual on the bottom of your screen. Okay, this is from Canva that captures all the elements of your brand. Okay, so again, it's part vision, mission, vision, values, purpose, brand promise. It's part product, service, positioning, customer relationship. It's part personality, story, journey, perceptions, expectations. That's interactions with customers. And then it's part your visual identity or your brand identity. A lot of people, when they hear brand, they just think it's your brand identity. The stuff we see, the logos, the colors, the imagery, the photos, the typography, the stuff that's in your brand kit. That is not your brand. That's your brand identity. So I want to really clearly articulate the difference between those two things now that we're not today just talking about your logos and your colors. We're talking about your holistic brand. In the packet that I'm going to give you, the digital packet that I have, I'm going to walk you through the process of building out your whole entire brand. We're not here just to pick out your colors today. So I'm going to walk you through the process in just a few minutes of this whole entire, exercise. But there is a worksheet in here that helps you figure out what is your vision for your brand. We're gonna look at what are my values as a business, and then we're gonna think about how do I take those core company values and how do I translate that into a mission statement. And then you're also going to develop your vision statement, which is kind of where you want to be as a business, the impact that you want to make on the world. And your vision and your mission statements will ultimately go into building the other aspects of your brand that we'll talk about in a few minutes. I don't want to get too ahead of myself here, but I promise that some of the things that I'm talking about today, your mission, your vision, all the logo, the colors, there are exercises in this workbook that are going to help you articulate those things. Okay. So moving on to brand identity. Again, this is how you communicate who you are through visual and linguistic mediums. So what we see and what we read about your brand. That's the brand identity, otherwise known as the visual identity. Okay. But I'm trying to articulate the different types of brand, who you are, brand identity, how you communicate who you are. Branding is the process of developing your brand and communicating about your brand identity. This process includes increasing brand awareness with a goal of growing your business, okay, or growing your brand. Okay, that's the art of branding. And then positioning is this other interesting component of branding. And branding is how you help customers see what is your position in the market, or what's your position in your own customer's mind when it comes to how do you compare to other competitors or others in the market. Okay, it's really helping them see like what value do you add and how do you differentiate yourself from others. I'm going to give you an example in a minute of that, but to illustrate what brand positioning is, you're really thinking about who are my customers and what do they need? What do my competitors offer? And how can I make sure that what I'm offering my customers is not something that my competitors offer? I'm going to reach over your shoulder for a second just so I can use my mouse. So your business, right, wants to meet a competitor need here. Because if your business meets a competitor need in a way that is also met by your competitors, that's a really risky place to be. If you're doing the same thing as your customers, that's a high competition zone, right? And you can do things that your competitors do, right? This is why there are a million coffee shops in the world. They all offer coffee. They're all at their core doing the same thing, but not every coffee shop offers free Wi-Fi, or if you're my 3-year-old, has cake pops, right? That might be why we go to Starbucks over different things, right? Or I'm in State College, Pennsylvania. My favorite coffee shop in downtown State College offers croissants by another local baker, right? And that might be their competitive advantage, or latte art, or swag, or free Wi-Fi. But how do you do that thing uniquely? This is your unique value proposition, which we'll talk about in a little here, and it's also your brand positioning. Okay, so to illustrate this point, I want to give you an example of a brand with unique brand positioning. Autumn, will you hit play on that video for me? This is a very brief video. See. It's okay, we didn't hear the sound. Just watch for a second here. So it was a very, very brief video about Rolex. But you see in this 19-second clip, they are positioning themselves as craftsmen of watches. They are showing someone with the most finely detailed precision instrument, building it by hand. Okay, they are experts, they are craftsmen, there is fine attention to detail, it's handmade, right? It's not something that's mass produced. So they are positioning themselves as luxury, as high-end, as craftsmen, as finely attention to detail, as these expert machinery, okay? And that's what positions Rolex as something different, okay? I'll give you another example. In just a few minutes here. I'm going to use Trader Joe's as my example. Good news is sound's not there. All right, we're back. So why do you need a brand? Because 64% of consumers say that they have a relationship with a brand because of its shared values with that brand. So again, people buy products based on their relationship with a company, not because of just the product itself. Again, why do I go to the downtown coffee shop necessarily over Starbucks? I say this as I have a Starbucks in my hand. My husband went to the grocery store this morning. There's a Starbucks in the grocery store, for the record. But it's because of a value that they have. Again, I'm going to talk about Trader Joe's today. A lot of people go to Trader Joe's because they believe in the values of Trader Joe's, right? Whole foods, ethically sourced. That's why they spend their money at Trader Joe's over something like Target or Walmart. It's because of values. So what makes a strong brand? If you're a company and you're thinking about what is my brand, how do I make sure that it's strong? It should be consistent. It should be uniform across all aspects of your business so that at every single touch point, your customer is consistent. So if you're like, my business has this strong environmentally friendly brand, right? Is that true of your packaging? Is that true of, your electricity? Is that true? You can't just say that and then not have that experience across every single touch point, right? Does your brand instill trust and reliability in current and potential customers, right? Are you authentic? Are you genuine? And because you're consistent across all touch points, they know they can believe in you because it's so consistent. It's authentic. It comes across as real. People see through phonies really, really quickly. So if they can believe in you, they can experience that consistency, that trust. They'll make sure that they can sort of build trust in you. It builds deeper connections with your target audience, which allows you to create impactful customer experiences. And that's what keeps people coming back for more. It distinguishes you from your competitors. That's a huge component of it. Again, there's lots of coffee shops out there. There's lots of grocery stores. What makes someone come to you over your competitors? It establishes a clear and unique brand image that's recognizable to your target audience, which helps increase brand awareness, which ultimately is the thing that grows your business, right? If you want people to come back to you, they need to recognize who you are. Someone talked about social media a little bit earlier today. So if you want someone to follow you, or if you want someone to stop scrolling because they recognize something so strongly as you, it has to be recognizable, because it's so consistent, it's so clear, it's so unique, it's so strong, that it's so uniquely you that they recognize it and they're drawn to it and they connect with it. Someone asked the question about which values are recession proof. In the exercise today, one of the things that I give you in this book is a values exercise where I give you a list of, they're probably like 100 values. I don't know that I can speak to like values that are most recession proof, but even in scanning this list, right, security is one that sort of speaks to me. Honesty, I think that's one that's always going to be recession proof. So take a look at this list, and I think that you'll see the things. I also think I hear a lot of times businesses come to me and they're like, I'm starting a business and I want to stand out and I want to be a business that makes myself unique. So I'm going to position myself as like a sustainable brand, because that's a thing that people care about. And that's going to be the reason why people buy my product or service over another product. You need to check yourself on that. You need to go out and do some customer discovery and figure out if that is really the reason why people are going to buy your product or service over another. Because sometimes people say, I care about environmentally friendly brands, but at the end of the day, that's not really the reason why they're buying a product or service. Sometimes it is, but for other products or services, it's not. So don't just assume that that's the reason. And that's just one example, sustainability. Don't assume that that value is the reason why someone would buy your product or service. Same thing with, I was talking with a client the other day who wanted to start a new dessert business. And the dessert business is kind of a little bit more niche, a little bit higher end. And she was saying that she did some surveying in a local Facebook group. It's a Happy Valley Moms. It's a community group. And she was saying that a lot of people were talking about in this current economic climate, people were talking about price points and how things aren't really accessible. And so it's really important to her that she offers something that's an accessible price point. But at the same time, what she's talking about offering is a really niche kind of culinary experience. And so what I'm hearing her say is, I want to offer this high-end culinary experience, but I want to offer it at a really low price point. And if your target audience is someone who doesn't have that palate, they don't want, like if your audience is someone who is used to buying, I'm going to use what my 3-year-old eats, which is like chicken nuggets at McDonald's, right? And their menu is they're used to getting low cost chicken nuggets, and you're trying to offer them this high-end culinary experience at that price point. That's a mismatch. Okay. So you're thinking my target audience wants culinary experience at a low price point. Those are two different audiences here. The people who want high culinary experience, their price point is not low price point. So you need to do, as you're developing your brand, this is why it's going to be really important to understand who's my target audience and what do they actually care about? Why are they buying a product or service? We're going to talk about how do you figure out who your audience is and what their pain points are in just a few minutes here when I talk about this product. Okay. So that's what makes a strong brand. It's okay. Oops. Oh, I think I hit the wrong direction on this thing. There we go. So great. Now you know why you need a strong brand. What are the elements of a brand? I went over this briefly. It's who you are as a company, vision, mission, purpose, values, promise. It's the actual product service that you offer, the price you offer it at, your position in the market, your relationship with your customers. Then it's like the story that you tell and the relationships that you have with your customers, their perceptions, their expectation of you, and it's the visual identity you offer. So how do you go about creating these things? So if I were to describe, I told you earlier what makes a strong brand. So what are the characteristics then of your brand? I would encourage you to make sure that it is unique or distinct from your competitors, that it is true and authentic to you. I talked about earlier how people see through phonies. So make sure that you're not just saying, if you want to be like, casual, right? And like buddy with your customers and like approachable, but like you're the most put together person who's like so straight laced and formal in your everyday life. And it's always going to be hard for you to talk on that like very colloquial conversational tone. Like that's always going to be a struggle. So you need to think about like, what is your brand, right? Are you serious? Are you low key? And can you present that brand in a way that is true to who your business is and in a way that is going to come across authentically to your customers? Is it intentional? So again, what do you do as a business? Who are your customers? And is your brand speaking to them intentionally? Is it relevant to your audience, to your business, to your industry? Is it audience driven? Is it clear in your messaging, in your visuals, in your website, in your mission statement, in your vision statement? Is it consistent across all touch points? Is it recognizable? Is it appealing? Again, audience driven. And does it represent your brand's mission and vision? And again, the exercises that I give you will help you work through that. So let's get into it. Let's talk about building your business's brand. And how do you go about doing this? So I'm going to talk about a 5-step process. And we'll walk through all these components. First, you're going to analyze your audience, because they should be at the core of everything that you do as a business. Then you're going to evaluate your competition to make sure that what you're doing is different. Then you'll articulate your vision, determine your aesthetic, and then select the visual elements that represent the brand. So when it comes to analyzing your audience, you're going to develop what is known as a customer persona. A customer persona is basically a character. You're going to come up with a fake person who represents your ideal target audience. So think about, okay, if I were to meet my ideal target customer tomorrow, and I were to visualize who is this person, and they were to walk through my door or were to come on my website or to follow me on social media, what would they look like? What are their needs? What are their goals? And trying to accomplish those goals right now, those goals are their needs or their wants. Because if you offer a thing that is not necessarily a need, it's fine. Some businesses offer a want, accomplish a need or a want, that's fine. But in trying to accomplish that need or their goal right now, what challenges do they run into in trying to accomplish that goal? What are their values? What do they care about? What are their behaviors or habits? What do they do on a regular basis? What are their attitudes toward life, toward your industry, toward your product or service? What are their demographics? Only if this is helpful, right? If you're a beauty business, right, the target demographic of age, of socioeconomic status matters. Sometimes demographics don't. Where do they hang out online? So where are they getting information? If you're a business, I can't tell you how many times someone comes into me and into my office as a client, and they're like, I need a TikTok account. And I'm like, you're a machine shop. Like, why do you need a TikTok account? If your target demographic is people in their 40s, that they're not on TikTok, I assure you. You don't need a TikTok. Your audience isn't hanging out there. So you have to figure out where are they getting their information, and that's where you need to be designating your marketing efforts. How do they communicate? How do they consume information? Is it short form content? Is it long form content? Is it informal? Is it formal? Like, well, how are they talking to one another? And that's how you should be communicating. What speaks to them? What messaging? What pain points? And how are they solving their problem right now? So I'm going to give you an example. I told you earlier, I'm going to give you Trader Joe's as an example of a business and how they're thinking about developing their brand. So for Trader Joe's, their target customer is primarily millennials and Gen X. So that's ages like 25 to 54. They do have strong cross-generational appeal, but for the most part, partly because of price point, but also because of like how they market, a lot of their target demographic is millennials now. Their income price point for their target population is middle class and above, customers who want to eat well, but also don't want to pay Whole Foods prices. Okay, Trader Joe's prices are not as expensive as Wegmans. They're not as expensive as Whole Foods. But we'll look at it in a few minutes. They are maybe above Aldi prices. Their lifestyle, Trader Joe's target customer, they're health conscious, they're adventurous eaters, they like to try new things, who enjoy trying new products and prioritize convenience without sacrificing quality. They value sustainability, ethical sourcing, minimal waste, and supporting quirky, authentic brands. And in short, Trader Joe's targets curious, value-minded food explorers who want to feel good about what they eat and where they shop. And again, only by going out. And how do you figure this out about your audience? Well, you're gonna have to do research. Some of that's online, some of that is actually going out and talking to people. Okay, you could use social media to poll your target audience, the people who follow you. Ask them these questions one at a time. Use your Instagram stories to ask people, what's your biggest challenge right now when it comes to grocery shopping? Okay, people say all the time, could I use surveys? People sort of hate surveys, right? But you could try. Customer discovery is the art of talking about, asking people questions without talking about your product or service. So you want to ask people truly about their problems without talking about your product or service, because that's the best way to truly understand how you can help people without trying to really focus on yourself. The best businesses will try and solve problems or needs for their customers without worrying about themselves. So that's thinking about your customers. Step 2 is to evaluate your competition. You're going to think about, who are my direct competitors? Direct competitors are people in your industry who are doing the exact same thing. Indirect competitors are people who are in a related industry, but maybe not doing the exact same thing. So indirect competitors might be people who are doing food delivery service. So Trader Joe's, right? Maybe it's Target. Okay, they're not a grocery store, but they offer food. Okay, so it's similar, doing similar thing. Replacement competitors is people who are not in the same industry at all, but are how people are going about solving that customer's need. So if people are going to Trader Joe's right now to buy flowers, a replacement competitor for Trader Joe's might be a florist. If people are going to Trader Joe's to buy pumpkins, a replacement competitor might be a local farm market. If people are going to Trader Joe's to buy their coffee or their beauty products, which is a reason why some people go to Trader Joe's, it's where do people go for those things right now? So you might not right now, if you're a grocery store, think about a local farmer's market as your competitor because they're not a grocery store. But if you're not thinking about where do my customers go right now to solve the problem that I'm solving, you're missing out on evaluating your competition. You have to think about, where do people solve their problem right now? And whoever that is, that's your competition. And you need to think about, how do you solve that problem for that person more uniquely? Not necessarily better, definitely not cheaper. That's not what makes you a better business. It's not about price point. It's how do you do it more uniquely? How do you solve their problem in a way that it's not being met now? Okay. If you're thinking about your competition in general, who is their target customer? Okay, because that might help you position yourself uniquely. So Aldi, their target customer is different than Trader Joe's. Okay, they're targeting families who need to shop efficiently at a lower price point. I'll show you a visual in just a minute here. How do your competitors' products or services solve their customers' needs? How do they reach their customers right now? So look at your competitors. Where are they communicating? If they're seeing success on Instagram, maybe that channel will work for you. But if their competitors are so completely different than yours, that shouldn't be the reason why you're choosing that channel. So you need to think about, are our target audiences so similar that that channel might work for me? Or are they so different that I shouldn't be using that same channel just because we're in the same industry? Obviously, you're thinking about how your products are different. That's how you should be communicating your product, what makes it unique. Don't ever badmouth another competitor or product. I don't recommend that strategy, right? But focus on what makes your product unique. And then think about how is their product underserving their customers' problem, wants, and needs, and then use that to communicate about your product. So let's talk about Trader Joe's. Thinking about their competition, what makes them unique? 80% of their products are private label. That means they as a company make their product. That gives them control over their quality, their pricing, and their creativity. That's why their products are so cheap, because they make them in-house. Their products are very closely curated. So within a traditional grocery store, there's something like 4,000 products. Or I'm sorry, 40,000 products in a traditional grocery store. You walk into like a Weis or a Giant or a Giant Eagle, depending on where you are in the state. At Trader Joe's, there's only 44,000 products. So it's a very carefully curated store. So it's a very different experience for their customers. They offer limited edition items. Okay, so if you go into Trader Joe's or you're a Trader Joe's shopper, you know, like seasonally, it's like, oh, this product's back. Like it's the gingerbread cookie, right, at Christmas time, or it's the pumpkin, whatever, seasonally. So this like scarcity and excitement that they build around seasonality because this thing is in, that's what makes them unique. The store experience itself is very different. They don't have a self-checkout machine. They care about this community experience. You interact with a person. The way that they train their checkout people to interact with customers is very, very unique. They don't have membership cards. They don't do coupons. They just have engaged staff who are connecting with you. All of their signage is hand drawn. They all wear Hawaiian shirts, but the decorations within their stores are all based on the local community. So here in State College, we have like Happy Valley and Penn State decorations. It's all customized based on your local community. The small footprint makes your experience more personal, feel less transactional. That's a goal of Trader Joe's. Their brand culture is flat pricing, no loyalty programs, no gimmicks. Customers can expect the same experience every single time. They know that things are fairly priced. Again, local storytelling and customer-centric culture. Staff are encouraged to chat, recommend, sample products. It's a very humanizing and shopping experience. Okay. Again, think about this. Like, look how intentional this marketing strategy. Marketing is the signage in the store. Marketing is the clothes your salespeople wear. All of this is marketing. Okay, that's in-person marketing. It's not digital marketing, which is what we're talking about today, but it's how you're telling the story of your brand through all of these touch points. All right. Articulating your brand vision. Again, there's an exercise in here for how you do this. So I'm going to go through this quickly because I want you to work through this on your own. But ultimately, you're thinking about who am I? What are my values as a business? What do I do? Okay. And how am I going to impact the world positively? That's your vision. Why do you do it? Okay. So what is the problem or solution you're solving? Okay. This is partly your mission. This is partly your passion. This is partly your purpose. And I have like a real like structured process in here that helps you identify these things and then put them all together to make a unique value proposition statement. So how do I do it better or differently or more uniquely than my competitors? That's your unique value proposition. What are your goals as a business owner and how can I communicate my vision in a way that will resonate with my target customers? Trader Joe's doesn't have a stated vision or a mission statement on their website. Some companies do. That makes sense to me. Mission and vision statements are kind of like corporate speak. So it makes sense to me that Trader Joe's doesn't have one because they are like the opposite of like corporate. So you may have one. It might be something you communicate. There's nothing wrong with that. That's, I think, a vision statement. Vision statement is oftentimes an internal statement, something you communicate with your team. A mission statement is something a lot of companies do communicate. Nothing wrong with that. All right, step 4 of 5 is determining your aesthetic. So how do you communicate all of that, who you are, with your community? First, you got to think about like, what's my vibe? Okay, how do I look? So Trader Joe's, again, their vibe is very like cultural. They've got Hawaiian shirts. Okay, their bags are like brown with like red. They've got, if you've ever read the newsletter that they send out, right? Like they've got like cartoons, but it's very just like natural looking things. So you got to think about, what does my brand represent? What's the mission? How will my brand differ from competitors? All the things we've been evaluating. And then how do I want people to experience that? What emotions do I want my brand to evoke? And then how do I represent that? So for Trader Joe's, if they want people to have, this is the chart you see on the screen, to think curiously about food, to be joyful, to feel connected, their vibe is going to be playful, handmade, tropical. Whereas Aldi's, we talked earlier, I gave the example of like, those are families who need to be cost conscious and having an efficient experience. They've got kids, right? They're going in for berries. They're like the cheapest berries at Aldi, always. I've got a 3-year-old. I gotta buy a lot of berries. Their experience and their vibe, it's very practical. It's no frills. A lot of like grocery stores, it's like standard supermarket experience. It's very neutral. It's very convenient. Whole Foods, on the other hand, it's like a very health focused, aspirational. It's very clean. It's very minimalist. So you can think about how the vibe that you're presenting through your brand identity impacts the experience that your customers have. Final component is that brand identity itself. So these are your visuals, your logos, your fonts, the typography itself, and then the messaging. How do you type? How do you speak? What's the tone of voice you use? What's the key language that you use? And So for Trader Joe's, their brand identity is really friendly, quirky, human-centered. They position themselves as a neighborhood grocery store. It's whimsical. They use humor, hand-drawn illustrations, playful copy. It's very down to earth. They avoid corporate jargon or pretentiousness. They're authentic. They focus on storytelling and brand products. Their brand voice is conversational and formal. They're the foodie friend who knows all the cool snacks. Their product names and fearless flyer copy use humor and creativity to make grocery shopping fun. They're story-driven. Their descriptions often read like travel tales or culinary adventures, like inspired by a trip to Thailand. That's like one of their product descriptions. Community-oriented, and here's an example of tone from their fearless flyer. Combines education and entertainment, embodying their quirky, curious, and personality. So here's just some examples of really consistent visuals. Here's a brand you can see. So this is a grain bowl brand. So their visuals represent, it's a circular element of their visual that literally looks like a bowl, right? So that makes sense that it's circular. All of the visual elements, like the different like lines, and like it looks like seeds, right? Or grain, like some of the elements look like cabbage to me. So their visual elements represent what they do as a business.
Even the font is very rounded and
Absolutely, right? It like kind of almost looks like chopsticks to me, like the LA. So when you're thinking about choosing your visuals and your color schemes, you want it to reflect the type of business, your vibe, your aesthetic. I would encourage you as you're developing this, if you're going to design it yourself, start with black and white rather than color, because color is really overwhelming really quickly. So start thinking about like, what are the elements first and then branch out into color. In this guidebook, I'm going to give you some tools for picking color. Okay, we'll talk in a second here about like the types of colors and what they represent. This is a great area to spend money. Okay. A graphic designer, it knows what they're doing. So if you have the resources and you're like, I just don't know if it's worth it to spend money. One, you can't trademark or copyright anything you design on Canva. So just a note about that, because they're all elements that have been created that you're combining. So there's nothing you can do to trademark anything you design on Canva. So if you create your logo in there, yes, you can use it. You can't trademark it. So note about that. And graphic designers are going to create something that's unique, that's visually represents your brand. So it is a wise investment. It's a good idea to have short form, long form, horizontal, and circular logos. So someone asked earlier about a logo suite. I'll show you an example of these in a minute. So you don't just want one single version of a logo. Again, I'll show you an example. When you're thinking about photography that's in alignment with your brand, think about like the color of the photography. Is it dark and moody? Is it light and airy? Those should all be consistent. You can use filters, I'm sorry, in a tool like Adobe Lightroom to make sure that there's a consistent filter on all of your photography so that your website imagery all looks the same, so that your Instagram imagery all looks the same. Again, so that it's all in alignment and all really consistent. A note about templates on Canva. I do, again, in my digital marketing series, I do have a presentation on how to use Canva. So that might be something to check out if you're not super familiar with Canva. But if you are going to use templates, please note that those get out of hand real quickly and can be so disjointed and all over the place. So if you're going to use templates for your social media or your graphics, choose a couple. Make sure they all use the same font. Make sure they all use the same color scheme at a bare minimum, because I can't tell you how many Instagram feeds or websites I see and just they're so inconsistent. I know it's tempting, but choose consistent things there. Colors, when it comes to choosing colors, there are associations that people have with different color schemes. Like greens are very natural, eco-friendly, right? Cool colors are very calming, relaxing, subdued, whereas warm colors are very optimistic, energetic, enthusiastic. Neutral colors are very sophisticated, powerful, pure. Make sure your colors are complementary. One of the tools in my branding kit is a color picker that helps you pick colors that complement one another. You also want to make sure that your colors have enough color contrast so that they are accessible. By accessibility, that means that you can see them on a website, especially people with visual impairments. You want to make sure that there's enough contrast, that you're not using like a light blue on top of a green background and people can't read it. So I have a color contrast tool in this packet as well. Typography, so that's the fonts. You want to make sure that you have clearly articulated and consistent use of fonts so that on your websites, on your graphics, you are laying out how, especially if someone else is creating your marketing materials, like someone on your team. This is an example of our brand kit at the SBDC where we've outlined like what is our header font. It's Futura Book, where we say like, hey, when you're using a header, it has to be this size. It has to be the bold version of this font. It has to be uppercase. It has to be italicized, right? But all of this should be really consistent. So again, everything looks neat and organized when it comes across in our messaging. Again, thinking about your fonts, does it convey, is it in alignment with your brand? Is it formal? Is it silly? A note about cursive fonts, don't write a lot in cursive fonts. Definitely don't ever write in all capital letters in cursive fonts. That's like horrible to read. That's one of my biggest like nitpicky things. Serif versus sans serif fonts. Serif fonts have the little foot on the bottom of a letter. None of my fonts on this screen have a foot on the letter. They're all just, the end of a letter is just flat. There's no little like the little line hooky thing. Oftentimes people, if they, most brands have complementary fonts. There's at least two. Sometimes people have a sans serif font complemented by a serif font. That's kind of traditional branding. You don't have to do that anymore. But be making sure the scale of your letters are easy to read, that letters are spaced out appropriately. Again, it's visually appealing and easy to read. When you're thinking about your messaging, again, just making sure that it communicates your values. Is it alignment with what your audience wants to see, that it resonates with them? And you're thinking of the key language and how you communicate your brand. This might be through your slogan, your tagline, your key language, calls to action, things of that nature. So quickly, I want to talk about brand guidelines. Brand guidelines are where you outline all of these rules for yourself so that you make sure that all of your messaging is, or all of your brand identity and how it is utilized in your newsletters, in your print materials, on your website, on your social media, so that it all follows the rules and is consistent. So here's an example from HubSpot where they outline like, hey, when you're using our logo, you can't change the color. You can't put it on a colored background and don't distort it. Okay. Here is another example of a brand kit. On the screen in the upper left-hand corner, this is an example of that logo suite. Okay, so oftentimes there's a text treatment. Text treatment is when you just have your name of your brand. That's it for your logo. Oftentimes there's a horizontal version, and then there's the submark, which is oftentimes like an abbreviated version that is great for like social media, like circles, or the favicon. Favicon is when you have a tab open on your website and it's the little picture next to the tab on your website. It's important for you to have that. That's what a favicon is. So those are great for that. Secondary logo is often just a shorter version of your logo. So sometimes you're going to have your primary logo, your full thing with all the details. Sometimes you're going to have the secondary. Submark is oftentimes like a round or smaller, it's visual, and then a really short abbreviated version. Again, you see examples of the logos with different color variations. You can see what not to do. Color schemes, making sure that they're all really consistent, outlining the color codes, the fonts, how to use it in different italicized version, different design elements that you might use consistently in graphics. Here it's these quotes with a big quote and a small quote and these circular elements. Canva is great for creating brand kits. There are great examples of these on Canva. Last thing before we take a quick break here and I get to some of these questions on the break. Here's a local business. Kelly is a voice coach. She's got great visual identity that is really consistent. You can see across her social media accounts. So color scheme is consistent. Her voice is really consistent. She's really enthusiastic. She's really supportive. All of that comes through in everything that she writes. You can see even her highlights on her Instagram story there are using her same color scheme. She's got her text treatment is on her Instagram feed, the center image, that's her text treatment, the sort of long version. And then she's got her shortened logo in her Instagram profile picture. Here's some images from her website. you know, that we're so happy you're here. Us work together. We thought you'd never ask. You can see her brand voice is very like conversational and comforting and welcoming. All of this is a really consistent brand that is communicated really, really nicely. Here's her brand kit. Again, different variations of the logos, fonts, her design elements, even different core images. All of those things are laid out so that as she's implementing her visual identity of her brand, everything is going to be consistent and applied neatly and consistent. All right, before we jump into the next component for our last half hour here, I'm going to give you a 5-minute break. I'm going to tackle a couple of the questions in the chat here while we do that. But take 5 minutes and then rejoin us and we'll jump into marketing strategy. Thanks for being here. Do you want to mute that for 5 seconds?
All right, good.
All right, I'll give people about 30 seconds to come back together and then we will get started and jump back into marketing strategy. All right, my clock says 10, so we're gonna jump right in because we've got about a half an hour left. I've got a few things I want to go over. So marketing strategy, why do you need one? Because really the goal is to connect your business goals with your marketing goals. You want to be intentional and make sure that you're not just marketing for the sake of marketing, that you're working smarter, not harder, and not spinning your wheels for the sake of marketing or posting on social media without any results. You want to be effective and efficient in communicating with your target audience. You want to build a brand awareness and enhance brand reputation so that you ultimately are acquiring and retaining customers, optimizing your resources appropriately, and collecting customer data that's going to help you make intentional marketing, but also intentional business decisions. So what are the elements of a marketing strategy? I'm going to talk about the GHOST format today, GOST. Some people have heard of GSOT, which is a different version of this. I used to think of it in terms of GSOT, but I've recently sort of thought about this differently. Our university actually thinks of strategic planning in this format. So I like this format. So we're going to talk about goals. Your goal is ultimately what you want to achieve as a business. Goals should be transformational and it's where you want to go. So right now, here's where you are as a business. Where do you want to get? This is your desired end state. Okay. So it could be, I want to grow my business this much in revenue. I want to grow my business this many customers. I want to launch a new product line. But these are your big picture business goals. Objectives, on the other hand, are shorter term, specific, clearly defined, and measurable outcomes that you want to be able to deliver along the way. So these are going to be time bound. They're going to have a number associated with them, but they're deliverable outcomes. Strategies are going to be the approaches that you take to achieving your goals and objectives. Okay. Think of this as like your blueprint or your plan. How are you going to go about achieving those goals or objectives? The tactics are the tools and actions you're going to take as you're implementing your strategies. And then your KPIs are the quantifiable measures that are generally attached to objectives. And again, I'm going to show you examples of all of these things in action. So the process for applying a strategy. And again, you are going to get a packet that is really going to outline how you do all of these things. And the way that my digital marketing blueprint session works is these things build on the other. So I would recommend that you work through the building a strong and measurable business brand packet first, and then move on to the crafting a marketing strategy packet. Because by doing the values exercise, the vision, the mission, the audience analysis, the competitor analysis, it's going to help you jump into this. And I'm quickly going to review some of those elements right in the situation analysis itself. So this process is 6 parts. First, the situation analysis, which is a recap of some of the things we just talked about. Then we're going to get into the meat of it, which is the ghost elements. We're going to determine marketing channels, allocate some resources, ultimately collect data, which will allow us to test and iterate. So let's jump into details of each of those steps. Step 1 of strategy is going back to our customer personas. Every single business decision you make should be based on your customers. What is the problem that they have? How do you need to solve it? The best business advice I ever got as a business coach was that the most successful businesses focus on solving their customers' problems, not their own solutions. If you are actually solving your customers' problems and their pain points, you'll be successful. You could have the greatest product in the world, but if it's not solving a customer's need, if it's not at a price point a customer can afford, if it's not offered in a way that they can achieve it or buy it, you're not going to be successful. So you have to understand this stuff. You have to meet them where they are. You have to give them something they want, they need, that they don't already have, and then you'll be successful. So revisiting your audience. Step 2, revisiting your competition. Okay. So who are your direct, indirect replacement competitors? Remember, expanding it. It's not just the same people in the same industry doing the same thing, but where are your target customers? How are they solving that same problem right now? And how are they doing it differently? Those are also your competitor brands. Okay. And think about how do you do it differently. So that's going back to your unique value proposition. I used this graphic the last time to kind of talk about brand positioning. It's also your unique value proposition. So, or unique selling proposition is another way of thinking about it here. That's USP. But it's how does your business solve a customer's need in a way that is unique from your competitors. In the packet, again, there's going to be an exercise that really helps you articulate this. All right, as we go through the goals, objectives, strategies, and tactics, I'm going to challenge you to think about, for every objective, what is the goal of the objective as it relates to the marketing funnel? If you're unfamiliar with the marketing funnel, every single step in the marketing process should really be helping you move customers down this marketing funnel. The first time you connect with a customer, they're at the awareness stage of the marketing funnel. And that's the time that they become aware of your business. At this stage of the funnel, your goal is to attract customers. So oftentimes at this stage of the funnel, this is why you have social media. Your job on social media is to draw awareness to your brand. Okay. After you make them aware of yourself on social media through content that informs them, entertains them, right? You're just drawing attention to yourself, brand awareness. Now, the next step is to make them consider you. Okay. Consideration content is where you inform them about your product. This might be product tutorials. Okay. It might be get them to sign up for your newsletter. It might be to get them to opt into a freebie. But you're now drawing them in, literally drawing them into the funnel, but you're getting them to do something to engage with you so that you can make them consider, they're not just aware of you, but they're now considering you as an option that they might buy from. After they've opted in to your newsletter, got your freebie, they're following you, they're hooked, they're considering you as an option, the next step in the marketing funnel is to convert them into a customer. To convert them, you might offer them a discount, right? You might provide content that makes it so compelling that they see why your product or service is the thing that they need right now. That's conversion content. And then the final step in the marketing funnel is really loyalty content, right? So it's why do people keep coming back for you? So when we're thinking about marketing strategy, I also want you to challenge yourself to think about, what is this different objective or strategy? How does it relate to my marketing funnel? And how are these things all working together? I would really encourage you to think about the marketing funnel for every single marketing effort you do. When you're on social media, think about, what goal is this social media post doing? Am I just drawing attention to myself, or am I actually using this to convert people? Am I actually using this to help people think about me? And making sure that your content is a mix of these things. Because if you're only drawing awareness to yourself on social media all the time, it's not helping you sell. All right. So let's look at some examples of goals, objectives, strategies, and tactics. So most businesses, their primary goal is to make money. So as an example, your goal might be, I want to have X dollars in revenue by the end of the year, or I want to increase sales by X%. Great. On the right side of the screen right now, I want you to look at this sort of visual. For every goal a business has, you're going to have multiple objectives. For every objective, you're probably going to have multiple strategies. For every strategy, you're probably going to have multiple tactics. So I don't want you to think that like it's one goal, one objective, one strategy, one tactic. No, these things branch out, because you're not just doing one thing to achieve your goal. You're not just doing one thing to achieve a specific objective. There's going to be multiple. So let's illustrate what this might look like. If your goal is to achieve new sales, how are you going to do that? Well, I'm probably going to use social media to generate brand awareness with a specific objective of generating new followers and generating opt-ins for my newsletters. Okay. So my objective is to generate X number of followers and X number of opt-ins for my newsletters. That's my objective. The specific thing I want to accomplish. I want followers on social medias, and I want opt-ins for my newsletters. How am I going to get those? How am I going to get followers? How am I going to get people to opt into my newsletter? Well, I'm going to use organic social media. I'm not going to use paid advertising on social media just yet. I'm going to focus on free social media. Okay. So I want to think about, why am I doing this? What is the strategy? What's the purpose here when it goes back to the marketing funnel? This is just awareness content right now. Okay. I'm not using, generally, organic social media is awareness. It's just making people aware. So tactics. What are my tactics? These are, again, the tools or the actions I'm going to take. I'm going to post tutorials about my product. I'm going to post my freebie. I'm going to post entertaining content. I'm going to post interactive polls, right? Like all the different things that you're going to do to get followers, okay? To get people to opt into your freebie. That's objective strategy 1. Again, there might be multiple strategies under organic social media or under objective. You're probably doing more than just organic strategy or social media to get opt-ins. You might have a QR code on your cash register to get people to sign up for your newsletter. That's another strategy with the goal of getting people to follow you. You might have a QR code on the back of your business card to get people to follow you. If your goal is to generate followers on social media, what are the different strategies you're using to get people to follow you on social media? Okay. The next objective. All right, I've gotten people to opt into my newsletter. Now I want to try and convert them, right? Or before that, sorry, I want to get them to consider me, right? Generate leads and draw them into the consideration form of the funnel. So I want to make sure they're not just opting into my newsletter. I want to make sure they're reading it and that they're clicking on the links, maybe my blog posts, maybe clicking on my website. So my objective is percentage open rate in my email and a percentage of click-through rate. These are metrics you can see in your emails if you're using email campaigns. So my strategy here is email campaigns. And again, my portion of the funnel is consideration here or generating leads. My tactics, I'm gonna do content marketing on social media. Okay, so I'm not just doing organic social media on, funny stuff, but I'm actually sharing my blog content here. It's educational content. I also maybe have a pop-up on my website that encourages people to opt in to my email. Okay. Obviously, it's the email itself and all the content within it. My next objective, great. I've got people to be aware of my business. I've pulled them down the funnel. I've gotten them to opt into my email and now they're opening it. But obviously the next thing I want them to do is actually buy from me. Okay. So my next objective is really going to be to get people on the website and to buy. So here, to get people to convert, I'm going to focus on paid advertising as one strategy. So my actual tactics here are going to be things like Google ads, Meta ads. Another strategy might be discounts, right? So my tactics might be 10% discount for new subscribers, 20% discount for repeat subscribers. Those are different tactics. Okay. So this is an example you're thinking about for your marketing strategy at every single stage of the marketing funnel. How am I making people aware of my business? How am I informing them about my product to make them consider me among my competitors, positioning myself differently? How am I converting them to customers so that they buy? And how do I keep them coming back for more? Now, when you're thinking about the next, so that's actually sort of outlining goals, strategies, objectives, and tactics. And again, in the packet, I have very specific things outlined where it gives you space for goals, space for objectives, space for strategy, space for tactics. Okay. There are all sorts of things in here to walk through that. If you need help, go online, search for examples, right? Say, this is my goal as a business. Help me come up with examples, use AI, right, to come up with examples for how might I come across, how might I use social media to achieve this goal? How might I use email to achieve this goal? How might I use my website to achieve this goal? What are other digital marketing strategies I can use to achieve this goal? What other in-person strategies might I use to achieve this goal? Someone asked me about networking at the beginning of the website or the webinar. Absolutely. Go to in-person events. I know that's not digital marketing, but that is absolutely a marketing strategy that you can use to achieve your business goals, to generate new customers, to get followers. All of these things help, so long as you're intentional about why do you need followers. You don't just need a bunch of followers on social media if you're not ultimately going to convert them into clients. Followers aren't helping you, especially if those followers, if you're an in-person business and those followers aren't even in the state, those followers aren't helping you at all. So you have to think about, why do I want this thing? Okay. I talked about this briefly earlier, but when you're thinking about your digital marketing channels, why are you on TikTok? If that's not where your customers are, you got to think about, why am I spending time and resource on this channel? So revisiting your customer persona, where do my customers go for information? What information are they seeking? What stage of the customer journey are they on? Are they just at the awareness stage? Are they at the consideration stage? What information do they need at this stage? If they're at consideration, what information do they need to seal the deal? So think about the questions that people ask you. Do research, see what other competitors are posting and having success with on their website, on their social media, and see what's working for them and replicate that in your own way. Don't just copy and paste. How do you figure out what's working? Again, go online. Look at paid advertising options, look at organic social media marketing, see what people are doing there. Opt in for other people's emails, see what they're posting about. Inbound content marketing, it's kind of like, what are you doing to pull people in? Content is the information you're sort of putting out to draw them in, blogs, social media. Outbound marketing is information that like you're putting out there. This is things like ads, billboards, advertising, like television, okay? You're blasting it out. Inbound naturally draws people in. It doesn't feel forced. All right, so for allocating budget resources, people ask me all the time, like, how do I know how much to spend on my marketing, right? Do I need to hire someone? That's allocating people resources. How much time should I be spending on all of these things? When you're setting a budget, or determining, people, if you need, to hire someone, these are things that I would consider. Ultimately, what is the return on the investment, right? Yes, hiring someone is expensive, but is justifying that cost per month going to generate enough leads that it's worth it, right? Spending, $1,500 a month on social media management, if the results are that I generated 2 new clients this month and 2 new clients are $3,000 a month in new revenue, is that worth that investment for you? Right? I don't know. It depends on your business. If you're a service-based business or a product-based business. I had a client recently who was a landscaping business, and he went and put flyers on people's doorknobs. And he spent something like $700 on these door knocker flyers. And in my head, I was like, that seems like, a lot of money on these flyers. And I can't imagine that he got like a ton of return on that. And his return rate was something like 1%, right? And I was like, that's a really low return on investment. But for $700 on 1% return rate, he got enough client signups that his return on that investment, he got thousands and thousands of dollars in work for that summer for a $700 investment. So ultimately, you as a business owner have to think about, what's the spend, what's the time it's going to take, and is the return on this investment worth it for me to determine that. Look at industry benchmarks, figure out what other people are spending on these things, on ads, on people. What's the percentage of your revenue that you're spending? Some people allocate a certain percentage of their revenue to marketing. Look at past performance, what's working, what's not working. Look at the lifetime value of a customer to inform your decisions, right? What does it cost to maintain a customer versus onboarding new customers? And then think about different channel costs, and if one might be worth it because, of budgeting over another. When it comes to budgeting, I recommend, if you're going to spend money on a channel, start small. You can always increase your spend over time, test things out, see what works. Don't just, when I say test things, give things a chance to be successful. Don't just like run one ad and say like, oh, that didn't work, so I'm never doing it again. Don't just try one channel and say, oh, that didn't work, so I'm never doing it again. Give something a chance to succeed. And if it's not working right away, try changing things up and go from there. Don't just quit altogether. But you do need to be continuously monitoring performance and making changes, tracking that return on investment, making adjustments, and reallocating as needed. So step 5 of 6 is really looking at the data and seeing what's working. So you need to figure out, how am I going to collect data on this tool? So if it's for your website, how are you looking at website traffic? If it's social media, how am I going to be collecting traffic on my social media? So we'll look at some examples of data collection methodology in just a minute here. Then obviously your job is to make sure that you are actually looking at that data. on a regular basis. If you never look at it, it's not going to be helpful to you. Next, it's to assess. Okay, so if my goal was X number of followers, you need to say, am I meeting those goals? Okay, if my goal was X number of followers by the end of the year, okay, quarterly, am I checking in to see, am I meeting that quarterly progress? If not, what do I need to change to be working on that goal? Do I need to reassess my goal because maybe it wasn't realistic? Or do I need to change up my strategy because I'm not quite there yet and I need to do something different to accomplish that goal? And then finally, ultimately, I think that, you know, to hold yourself accountable, you should be reporting on those things and be making recommendations based on that. So let's look at some tracking methodology. Google Analytics is a free tool that you can plug into your website to track how your website is performing. Okay, you literally sign up using you create a Google account, Google business account, and you get a tracking code and you put it on your website and it tracks how many people are coming to your website, where they're spending time on your website, what pages they're viewing, where they're coming from, countries, cities, all of these things. If you do not have this on your website, you should do this immediately. Google how to get Google Analytics and put it on my website. Okay. If someone developed your website for you, I'm almost positive they put this on your website. If you don't have access to your Google Analytics account, ask for it. You should be checking this regularly. Okay. On social media gives you access to analytics. You can actually open up the app itself and go into your analytics. If you have a business or a creator account, you have access to analytics. You can also use Meta Business Suite for Facebook and Instagram. Meta Business Suite is an awesome tool to schedule content, to look at recommendations, to look at your insights, to see what content is doing well. Look at content that's doing well, do more content like that. If a content gets a lot of likes, that's good awareness content. If a content gets a lot of comments, that's good engagement consideration content. If a content gets a lot of follows, that's good consideration and getting closer to conversion content, if that's helpful. Email analytics. So if you use a tool like Constant Contact or MailChimp or Flowdesk, it will give you your open rates, your click-through rates. 30% is an average open rate. I know that seems really low. But you want to have strong open rates. Look at your unsubscribes, see how your emails are doing, and think about, is my content valuable? Are people opening this? Am I getting all of a sudden a lot of unsubscribes? That should tell you, okay, if I'm seeing a lot of unsubscribes, I need to change up my content. If I'm seeing a lot of open rates, wow, what was so successful this month? Was it my subject line was really engaging? Was it a strong statement? Was it something really helpful? Figure out what's going well, do more of it. But again, you have to be actually reading these things and setting up structures so that you're checking them regularly and using the information to make decisions. Next, of course, test and iterate. A lot of this is trial and error to see what works. And once you find something that works, keep doing more of it. Switch it up on what's not working. Here's some examples of marketing strategies. Global Entrepreneurship Week is an event that we run here at the Penn State SBDC. I used to manage this event. So some of our goals, we really wanted to, obviously our main goal was kind of to get people to attend. So to do that, we wanted media mentions. So our specific objective with a KPI attached, so that's a key performance indicator. We knew we were successful, 30 media mentions. How are we going to do that? Our strategy was to optimize print and physical promotional efforts to generate awareness. One of our objectives was at least 20 virtual attendees at every in-person event. Again, our strategy was promotional materials. Another one of our KPIs was an average rating of 8.5 out of 10 on attendees. So some of our tactics were commissioning actual vendors to develop print materials, drafting editorial content that made it easy for press to mention us, designing branded apparel and swag that increases brand awareness, attending outreach events to distribute promotional items and event information. Here's some other examples. These are just, I have my own personal kind of examples of different objectives, KPIs with there and tactics. So if your objective is really increasing brand awareness, Some tactics might be shareable content, hashtags, collaborating with influencers. KPIs that you might be using to track success are reach and impressions, social media mentions, engagement rates, likes, comments, shares, retweets, searches, things of that nature. So again, really just be thinking about what's my goal, what would demonstrate success in that, attaching a metric to it, and the actual steps it would take to get there. So that's the content that I have for you today. What should you do with this information? Please work on the workbooks. I encourage you to work in the order that we presented content today. So start with brand and then work through marketing strategy. After that, we encourage you to work with us. I want to introduce Hazel. Hazel is here from the Veterans Business Outreach Center, our co-host in today's event. I want her to introduce the VBOC Center and what they do.
My name is Hazel Diaz. As mentioned, I am the director of the Veterans Business Outreach Center, and we work very closely with Pennsylvania's SBDCs, including the one here at Penn State, to provide guidance to veterans, small business owners, and entrepreneurs. And that includes startup assistance, partnerships with different organizations, including the SBDC and partners, depending on the needs of your business and entrepreneurship. Penn State has an ecosystem of services, from the law clinics to our partnering with Apex accelerators to help veterans who are looking for a certification for their business. And we assist veterans in startup, scaling, and succession. So the VBOC is available for veteran entrepreneurs and their spouses.
Awesome. So all of you are here likely because you are eligible to receive VBOC services. All of you, if you are in the state of Pennsylvania, have access to an SBDC in your region. If you are in Center, Clinton, Mifflin, or Lycoming counties, you are eligible to work with the Penn State SBDC. Those are the 4 counties that we serve. But there is an SBDC that serves every single county in the state of Pennsylvania. If you go to pasbdc.org, you can find the SBDC near you. They asked for, Autumn, could you drop the VBOC website? pasbdc.org. I'm gonna make sure that it is .org quickly. I should know that, but.
The VBOC site is vboc.psu.edu. And Autumn is sharing it in the chat, I believe.
All right, so that's pasbdc.org is how you find the SBDC nearest you. And then the VBOC link is coming your way. Our services are free and confidential, and we provide one-on-one business consulting, so that we hope that you'll reach out for assistance, so that we can work with you and answer your individual questions. I can stick around for a few minutes to provide some, again, if you have individual questions. Will the recording be shared? I would be okay with sharing the recording on it, if you're good to share that out.
I know we talked about posting it on our website, having it accessible on our website too. So we'll have it there, and then how you can connect with the VBOC. You can go to the website and click on connect with us and fill out the information. We're happy then to connect with you, get you with one of our program directors to then meet with you and kind of help go from there. So going to our website would be the best option then for you there.
Can I have you advance one more slide?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you so much. So again, I'll stick around for a few more questions. Can I have you advance one more slide?
Yes, ma'am.
Here's the SBDC contact as well as the VBOC email. You can find VBOC at Penn State on Facebook. SBDC has social media as well. You can find that. Our handles are all at Penn State SBDC. And then at the very end here, we do have, I think the QR code is maybe there for, we have a QR code with a brief survey. We would love your feedback on how the session was and how we can improve things. I'll also share out a link here to the rest of the digital marketing series. If you're curious to watch any of the remaining sessions of the digital marketing series, is that okay, Hazel?
Yeah, totally.
Okay. They are all recorded and on demand. So it's the link to the Penn State SBDC website. You have to scroll down on the page to find the training series. And on the training series section, is the digital marketing sessions. Do not watch parts 1 or 2 because that was what I covered today. So don't watch branding. I lied. It's section 3, winning marketing strategy. Those are basically the 2 things that I covered today. But the other ones may be helpful to you. So check them out if you found today's set helpful. If you did not, do not turn into any more of me talking. So thank you so much for being here today. The workbooks will be shared out with you after today's session. So.
And the recording will be on the VBOC website. So we'll work on getting that then up there for you. If not today, in the coming weeks. So